Former Colorado Speaker of the House Andrew Romanoff increased speculation of another run for the U.S. Senate this week. Romanoff filed paperwork with the Federal Elections Commission regarding the Senate campaign. His representative said it was pertaining to his failed 2010 run, but Democratic operatives told Colorado Politics that Romanoff has been reaching out regarding a potential 2020 run. Eric, I guess my question here is, Romanoff has earned a great deal of respect. His role in Speaker of the House, I think that was a 2004 election, was ushering in a lot of Democratic, I wouldn't say power, but influence in Colorado politics. But I don't know if he remains that higher tier. And when I look at the 2020 race versus Cory Gardner, it seems it's going to attract the very top tier of Democrats in Colorado. It's still 2018. There's a lot of room between now and then. Does Andrew Romanoff remain in that top tier, or has he slipped a bit in Colorado politics?
Well, he's probably slipped a bit simply because he's lost a couple races, so he's tarnished by that. And secondly, parties change, and in a state growing as rapidly as Colorado is growing, there's a whole lot of in-migration, including a whole lot of people now active in the Colorado Democratic Party who have barely heard of Andrew Romanoff. He's a name back there with Roy Romer or other people who have been historically important figures in the Democratic Party, but not necessarily current tense. I think it is fair to say, I don't know what to make of the filing. I think it's fair to say that Andrew is at a minimum, shall we say, exploring his options. If I was the board chair at his current employer, the Mental Health Association of Colorado, I would probably be looking at perhaps filling a vacancy, because it seems like Andrew is on the cusp of moving on. I also hear from very good and reliable sources that he is in the running and maybe in the top tier for offer, at least, for a cabinet job in the Polis administration, a high-tier cabinet job. So perhaps Romanoff is having to make one of these decisions. Does he want to throw his hat back in the political ring, or does he want to stay either in that association level or manage a major state agency?
Natasha, that 2010 run, if I remember anything right, was based on Romanoff going ahead and picking a fight within his own party and running against Michael Bennet. That tends to, I think Eric made a good point. That was a long time ago. It's not like every Democrat who back then may have been part of a burned bridge is still running things now, but that can make things complicated. If Andrew Romanoff is interested in running in 2020, what does his path look like?
I think his path looks similar to the many other candidates that are going to be interested in the position as well. I mean, thanks to our term limits, that's what happens in Colorado. We have lots of very talented or very experienced politicians that are out of a job after a period of time, and then it becomes a question of what next. Cory Gardner's seat is a sort of a logical step for many people, Romanoff or anyone else who might be in that mix as well. And what's going to be different this time is that Cory Gardner has a long voting record behind him now. He's has a leadership position. Running against him will be different than the last time. And I think that the candidate that the Democrats are going to look to run against him will be in response to that rather than just who wants to run for this race. It's going to be versus Cory Gardner versus just I want to run for this position.
Patty, can we assume that whether Gardner is vulnerable or not in 2020, that this is going to be one of the top races in the country?
Absolutely, and it's going to be a crowded field here, because even if you don't care if you're going up against Cory Gardner, it doesn't come up, the chance to run for the Senate doesn't come up that often, because you get there, you could be there for life. Diana DeGette is going to be in her district for a long, long time. So if someone wants to go somewhere in Washington, this is an opportunity. We already have Crisanta Duran looking at it. We have 2 declared candidates already for the Democratic Party. If Andrew Romanoff joins in, he will automatically have some boost because of his background, but as Eric points out, people don't know who he is anymore. A lot of people who've moved to town, so he's going to have a very high hurdle to get beyond the 17% for somebody else or nobody.
David, are Democrats exaggerating Gardner's vulnerability here in 2018, what it might be in 2020?
No, because Colorado is a very anti-Trump state. And that inevitably, as we saw, is a large drag on anyone with an R after their name. To the extent they want to heighten the contrast between the nominee and so their Senate nominee and Trump, Romanoff is very good for that. He's highly experienced, was by all accounts a very good Speaker of the House. You don't have to whether you agree or disagree with his view on the issues. People thought he was very competent and solid. He's now been running this Mental Health Colorado, an advocacy organization, doing a good job on that. So if you want to, if you're on the Democratic ideology and you want to send somebody to the Senate who's going to be ready on day one to be an effective senator, I think he'd have to be at the top of the list. But as Patty said, there's going to be lots of other people running. Mike Johnston, a well-respected state senator, is certainly, if you look at what he's doing on Twitter, kind of targeting Cory Gardner already. So it could be a crowded field, but if the Democrats are rational rather than hysterical, 50-50 on both parties these days, they will at least give Romanoff a serious look.